Okay, first I want to start with just a little short story just to kind of set the platform for what I'm about to share with you guys today. Now I want you to imagine that you're with a group of friends and you're giving them the itinerary for the day. You're telling them we have this at this hour, this at this hour. Anyways, you're giving the whole kit and caboodle. And then at the end of it, you look up and you realize that they got none of it. Went in one ear, out the other ear, and you kind of hurt at first, and then you realize, okay, well, what's causing this? You look a bit closer, and then you realize that they weren't ignoring you completely, but they were more focused on something else. That something else being whatever was on their screen at that moment. Okay, today I'm going to be sharing with you my opinions and my beliefs on how social media is negatively affecting our relationship with others and interactions with others, as well as the negative effects it has on future generations. First, I want to start with how social media is negatively affecting how we interact with those around us. A big problem with that is the quality time that we spend with those around us. Nowadays, we might hang out with each other to play video games or watch YouTube videos or something, whereas before we used to play board games and stuff like that. And I'm not saying video games or YouTube videos are necessarily bad, but I think overuse of something like this kind of takes away of the personal interactions that we have with those around us. Another big problem is the amount of time that we spend on screens each day. Each human on average spends 5 to 6 hours a day on screens, 90% of that, or more than 90% of that, being on social media alone. If you add that up, that's nearly 92 days worth of screen time in a year. And it kind of leads to that negative effect of social media. It's great and all, but overuse of it kind of causes a self-destruct to where we start to view everything around us as a screen, and it starts to hurt us and how we interact with others because we kind of lose that way of interacting with others. The next thing I want to talk about is self-comparison. Now this is a big thing because we tend to, even whether or not we admit to it or not, we always tend to compare ourselves to those around us or those we see on social media, like famous people or something like that. And we kind of compare ourselves to them, and all of a sudden we point our own flaws out to ourselves to the point to where we feel terrible inside, or we feel like we can't speak out to those people because of that negative effect it had on us. And a big problem this has with how we spend time with others is now we tend to listen to what people say in more of a negative view and are hurt more by it. It causes this negative effect on our brains and how we interact with those around us. The next thing I want to talk about is how this affects future generations in a negative way. Social media, like I said earlier, the time we spend on it has constantly been growing, and it's growing exponentially after that. And I fear that if we spend 5 to 6 hours a day now, imagine what our kids or our kids after that might spend on social media. They might spend a whole day talking to people online and never once meeting that person in person. A big issue I see with that is then we lose that how do we act socially around people and in more of a public setting. Another issue I see with that is our emotions tend to become more fragile. And if our children are spending even more time, imagine how fragile they might become to the slightest thing, like somebody in a comment posts out a flaw that they might have. And at first it's hard to tell that even happened, but then all of a sudden that emotion starts to turn up inside them, and then they're just torn up about it, and it's almost impossible to unresolve. And the biggest issue with this is a lot of people nowadays don't think that the amount of time on social media is a negative influence on kids, and so they're going to teach their kids that the same thing, and their kids are going to teach that, and it just creates this negative snowball that just keeps gradually getting bigger and bigger until they lose sight of what it's like to actually hang out in a social interaction or be outside or something like that. My biggest takeaway for this is not to scare everybody into thinking social media is the worst thing ever, but I just wanted to share my view on why I think that overuse of social media is a negative impact on our interactions with others as well as interactions with future generations. My biggest action for this, or takeaway as you may, is I don't propose a radical life change, but I think a small change in our daily life is the big thing we need to do. One of those ways of doing it is a detox or a fasting from it. A big way of doing this is just putting your phone down, spending more time outside, making sure to set limits, and just, it's hard. The first year it's gonna seem practically impossible. But if you do this over and over and over again, eventually it becomes easier to ignore that technology, and you move away from more of a entertainment-based technology to more of something that you can use for information and stuff like that, and that's it. You can focus less on that and more about time you spend with others around you, and focus more on how you're going to raise your kids to where this is not an issue for you. Thank you.